Damascus, which killed at least 23 people and injured 62, with 12 in critical condition. Hundreds of believers have gathered on Sunday the 22nd of June for an evening service at the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Elias in Dwellia, on the outskirts of the capital, when a man opened fire before detonating himself with a suicide vest. I was preaching when the shooting began, recalled Father Basilios, priest of St. Joseph Church, which is close to St. Elias Church. Then came the screams. Everyone instinctively dropped to the ground. The fear, it was unspeakable. We were all in shock, paralyzed with horror. The moment that truly rendered me helpless, listen to the next bit, was when a child, one of those who've lost their family, rushed to me saying, "Hide me, Father, I don't want to die." This is the plight of Christians in Giuliani's Islamist government. Giuliani's Islamist government has allowed and facilitated the persecution of its Christian minority. Giuliani's Islamist government has been funded by your Foreign Office, with David Lammy sending more than 70 million of your tax-paying pounds to this government. The Christians of the Middle East, no matter which country you look at, are a persecuted minority. In Egypt, they suffer anti-Christian pogroms. In Iraq, they suffered an attempt by ISIS for their complete annihilation. In Jordan, Christians do not have equal rights with Arab Muslims. In Qatar, that our government does much business with, Christians do not have equal rights with Arab Muslims. And I could go on to list every Muslim country in the Islamic world, and in every single one I could point out acts of discrimination, including in Pakistan, where most Muslims of this country originate from, where they also suffer anti-Christian pogroms, attacks upon churches, and discriminatory practices like being refused to drink out of the same cup as Muslims. Our government deliberately turns a blind eye to the persecution of Christians across the Muslim world. And why? It does so because to stand up for them would not fit the narrative at home. If the government were to take a stance in support of persecuted Christians abroad, it might start to ask questions here in the UK about whether the values and the teachings of Islam are compatible with British society. And so the British establishment look the other way. The progressive hypocrites look the other way. But as Christians, and put your hand up if you're a Christian, as Christians, can we look the other way? No. We are duty bound by the teachings of the apostolic faith to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters around the world against all of their enemies. Whether their enemies are Islamists across the Muslim world, Hindutva in India, the Burmese government in Burma, or communists in North Korea and China. Whether it is drug cartels in Nicaragua or Colombia, as Christians, our first duty is to stand up for our brothers and sisters, even if such solidarity is damaging to our home nation. We must not be silent like the liberal progressive world is silent. We must force this question into the centre of British politics. It's quite possible. How else do you think that Israel's conflict with Palestine has entered into the centre of British politics? Because it was forced into the middle of British politics. If Muslims can do it for Palestinians and Hamas terrorists, then Christians can do it for the persecuted church. The failing is on all of you as Christians for your lack of imagination, for your lack of courage, for your lack of conviction, for your lack of determination, for your lack of organisation, for your lack of willing to unite with your brothers and sisters just because they don't say the same doctrinal, dogmatic statements as you do. You are the ones that have failed the persecuted church. Find your voice, find your conviction, find your courage, find your solidarity. Use your imagination, organise, train, mobilize and resist. Christians can do more. Christians should do more. Christians should pressure every sympathetic government that can to send military aid to Christians in the Middle East so that they can have a country of their own. That we can establish in the 1040 window Christian safe havens where Christians will not be persecuted. Christians can and should work within the law to establish legal mercenary entities whose job it is to defend persecuted Christians. Christians can and should be regularly protesting on the streets for the persecuted church. I want to tell every Christian, your prayers are not sufficient. I want to tell every Christian, your donations to the persecuted church through good Christian charities like Open Doors, Barnabas Fund, Christian Solidarity Worldwide, Voice of the Martyrs, are not sufficient. These Christian organisations are not brave enough, are not imaginative enough to try and actually deal with the problem of the persecuted church. Our cowardly church leaders must be dragged, kicking and screaming and protesting against the laity as we stand for our persecuted brothers and sisters. Do not be shy that people will abuse you and call you names. Christians are dying for your silence. Don't be afraid to go to prison. Christians are dying for your silence. Work within the law to change the law. Work within the law to help our brothers and sisters who are being butchered across the world. And do not be browbeat by progressive hypocrites who accuse you of Islamophobia because you stand up against persecution of Christians in the Muslim world. Why is it they don't call you a comophobe if you stand up against persecution of Christians in the communist world? Why don't they call you a Hinduphobe if you stand up against persecution of Christians in India? Why would they not accuse you of anti-Semitism if you stand up against persecution of Christians in Israel? The reality is, we Christians have been kowtowed into being too sheepish. We go along with the liberal narrative rather than thinking for ourselves. Thinking for ourselves as a Christian people, as the people of the covenant of God that binds us together across all ethnicities, all borders, and all other ideological concerns. It is on us to stand up for the persecuted church, because no one else will ever help persecuted Christians apart from the church itself. Right. True. Any questions on that topic, ladies and gentlemen?
No, but I'd like to say thank you, mate, before I go. Good job.
Peace be with you.
Thank you.
There you go, bro. That's for you. Any questions on the topic?
Any questions on the topic?
Go on, bro.
Sorry, I just got here. What exactly are you arguing for?
Oh, okay.
You missed it, bro. Too late. I'm not going to go over the entire thing again. In short, in a one-sentence summary, it is the responsibility and duty of Christians to help their persecuted brothers and sisters across the world, even if our own governments or liberal elites don't like it. And can I encourage you to move in and use this space, please? Any other questions on the topic?
So, in order to build masculinity, yes, where would we start from? In order to find that masculinity, yes, in order, yes, to build this up, to build the strength up, yeah, due to the church itself.
Christians, you must identify yourself not with whatever ethnicity you have, not with whatever nation you were born into, but you must identify yourself with the church. The church is Catholic. It is universal. It is for all peoples. It is one body, as the scriptures say. And when one part of the body suffers, all Christians must feel the pain. And so the plight of persecuted Christians in Nigeria and Syria and Lebanon and Sudan and Indonesia and the Philippines and Burma and India and China and Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and Arabia and Oman and Yemen and Kazakhstan and Morocco and Algeria and Egypt are not the plight of other people. They are the plight of our people, because we are the people of the church, the people of the new covenant, and that is where we begin. Any other questions on the topic?
Questions on the topic?
Going once? Any questions going twice on the topic?
Oh, at the end, on the topic, can I ask the people in...
Ask any question, yeah.
In the YouTube chat, and then they can post
Well,
questions?
of course, bro, of course. Yeah.
So for those
Questions from the chat,
YouTube
family, let us
chat,
know.
Bob will be
Final
on
chance, you
now.
better get moving quick.
Now.
Any questions on the topic?
And do you have any questions on the topic, those of you on the YouTube chat? I know there's 26,000 of you on, unfortunately, on X, and I don't get questions on X, but I do. So on the YouTube chat.
Right, ladies and gentlemen.
Because I don't see any.
One of the markers, if you're looking for a good church, any church that is not standing up for persecuted Christians is a poor church. It is an absolutely essential part of what it means to live as a Christian that you stand in solidarity with other Christians. And so if your church obfuscates or retreats from or refuses to stand in solidarity publicly, openly, often, and in many and various ways with the persecuted Christian church, then find yourself a better church. But I want to say, most Christian churches in this country, are not doing enough to help the persecuted church. They take, we pray for the church, we send money to the persecuted church, and then they think, job done. That is not job done. Until there is a change in foreign policy and our government, as a matter of foreign policy doctrine, helps persecuted Christians, we Christians in this country and everywhere else have not done enough. Next question on the topic. Wait, yeah, no.
One from the YouTube chat by Cantabriginis. Can you ask Bob whether more Christians have been attacked by Palestinians or by Israelis?
So, ladies and gentlemen, I suspect it is probably true to say that most Palestinian Christians have been attacked by Israelis than by Palestinian Christians. However, ladies and gentlemen, Israel treats its Christian citizens better than any Palestinian authority treats its Palestinian Christians. Israel treats its Christian Arabs better than any Muslim government in the Middle East treats its Christians. So yes, I have issues with Israel. I have issues with Israel partaking in a genocide when they sold arms to Azerbaijan, as Azerbaijan ethnically cleansed 120,000 Christians from Artsakh just 2 years ago. I have problems with the way that Israel discriminates against Messianic Jews who don't have the right of return. But I have a bigger problem with Hamas that wants to subject every Christian around the world to second-class citizenry under an Islamic apartheid known as dhimmitude. And I have a problem with every Islamic government and every Muslim majority government that discriminates against persecuted Christians across the Muslim world. Next question on the topic. Go on, sister. Sorry?
What would be your message to the churches that promote the LGBTQ+? I'd like to know that.
On the topic of Christian persecution, madam. Sorry, it's off topic.
Oh, right, okay.
Any question on the topic of Christian persecution?
What can you do for Christians in a country like Turkey, where it's a Muslim country now? And
live side by side. All
they're
the
now,
side by side. In
now,
Pakistan as well. All the country. We're happy.
unable to practice their religion.
Yes. Even Turkey, ladies and gentlemen, that participated in the ethnic and religious cleansing of northern Cyprus in the 1970s, goes unpunished by the West. If you want to know what our Palestine is, brothers and sisters, our Palestine is the cause of northern Cyprus. Our Palestine is the cause of Artsakh, Greater Armenia. Turkey is a country in which Christians are regularly discriminated against and persecuted by the government under Erdogan, who consistently threatens his Christian neighbours and sides with Islamist terrorists in Hamas, supported a genocide by Azerbaijan, and supported ISIS, ladies and gentlemen. Turkey should be kicked out of NATO. Our liberal elites are being played because they are naive, because they are ignorant, and because they are conceited. Turkey is an enemy of the West. It is an enemy of Europe, waiting for the West to be weak. And when it is weak, Turkey under Erdogan will pounce. Christians have been martyred in Turkey, killed just for practicing their religion. And yet, the world does not boycott Turkey. Yet, many of you would go on holiday to Turkey, buy Turkish products. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, Turkey should be subject to an economic boycott by everyone with a moral conscience. All products of Turkey should be boycotted. No one should go on holiday to Turkey. If you want to go on holiday to Cyprus, go to free, liberal, liberated southern Cyprus. Next question on the topic.
Final question, Bob, on the topic. Letter number 3R sound asks Bob, why is it illegal to preach the word in Israel? Also, why do they spit on Christians in Israel?
Right, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let's just correct the anti-Semitic trope that underpins the question. It is not illegal to preach the Christian faith in Israel. That is a lie spread by people that want to stir up anti-Semitism. If you have to lie to progress your argument has already failed. However, Messianic Jews in Israel freely proselytize. I call upon Arab Christians to proselytize to their Jewish neighbours. Ladies and gentlemen, there are and have been incidents of individual Jews attacking churches in Israel, spitting on Christians in Israel. But these actions are illegal in Israel. However, under Islamic law, a Muslim becoming a Christian is punishable by death in 14 Muslim majority countries, including in Iran, including in Saudi Arabia, including in Mauritius, where the British government trades. So why doesn't the questioner call out that? Any other questions on the topic, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I'm going to go on to my next topic. So guys, just ignore the troll. He will only feed on your energy. If you keep ignoring him, eventually he gets bored and goes away. He does this every week. He's actually one of my favourite fans.
Islam is the same message for all prophets.
Right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, Bob.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on to my next topic.
You need some teaching.
Right. Going to go on to my next topic, which I'm going to ask for a... Do you want to debate Islam and Christianity? Do you want to debate Islam and Christianity? Okay, let me go and debate him. Come on. Come on, you wanted to debate. You wanted to debate. Let's debate. Don't run. You wanted to heckle me, now debate me. No, let's debate. You got your wish. No, let's debate. Let's debate. Let's debate. Let's debate. You wanted to heckle me. Yes, you do. If it's the way, why do your hadiths contradict? If it's the way, why do your hadiths contradict? If it's the way, why do hadiths contradict? If Islam is the way, why do your hadiths contradict? You wanted to heckle me, now debate me. You wanted to heckle me, now debate me. Now debate me. Now debate me. Debate me. Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back over there.